Hello, this is RTK, and today we're going to rank all the high elf units for Domination player mode in Total War Warhammer 3. And I am Czarix, joined by PiZu
Hello.
and Stingus.
Okay, so let's start with the criteria we are going to evaluate these units by. First of all, how often can a unit be taken? In how many matchups is it going to perform? What their role is? How many of the roles they have, and how good they are in that role. And the third one is purely their cost effectiveness in a vacuum.
So, going into the tier list itself. First of all, we are going to rank all the lots. And first we got Alithanar. Alithanar is actually a pretty decent lot in my opinion. In many kitey matchups like the Wood-Elves, when we can use Alithanar and his clone to reveal the opponent's hiding kiting units, and also the Moonbow is pretty powerful of an item, which he can get a lot of value for himself while being cheap, and it is a lot that you do not have to care about too much. It is B tier in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I will say between B and C tier, I'm fine with B. I take him not very often, but when I do, he usually pays for himself, just about.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think especially when you said you can just take him and leave him alone, his MD really helps with him just sitting there. He can't get sniped too easily, being that high elf, high MD lord. And yeah, he's an archer that can just plink away at heavy cav or big models. So that's what I enjoy him for too, especially with being cheap.
Okay, the next one we have Alariel, a very good lord. One of the best healers we have. A very good mix of lots of magic with life and height, especially. A Star of Averlon, a very strong healing item. I would put her in AS.
Alright, I agree with the stuff that you take. She's not this common of a use in the high elf builds that we should give her S tier. But there's definitely a lot of matchups like the Dark Elves or like Khorne when you really want to have this fat feeling on your elite cavalry or infantry.
Yeah, I think her main thing keeping her out of that S tier is her price, in my case. Usually, I love Earthblood and Arcane Unforging combo on her. I think it's so good into so many matchups. But I think that combo is like 1,800 gold with her on her Eagle.
It's actually over 2,000 usually when you bring the items that you want.
All right, next we got our newly added boy Alistar. So sadly, we kind of went to put him in S, of course. Actually, we're going for niche with him. So he's not a bad combatant on his mounts, but he does cost more than all the other generic characters and legendary characters on those same mounts, which is rough for him. His niche that we would say is he's got that fire item, which imbues fire attacks to those around him and gives him a bit of flame resistance. I like that item, but it's really only got uses into a lot of regen factions, things that have fire weakness, and that's really only 3 to 4 factions that spam those type of units at you. So
yeah, I would agree definitely with that. He's still a dragon lord, so all the dragons are incredibly good SEs, and putting any of them and being straight away bad just feels kind of wrong, even though there are a lot better lots right there. I could argue for him being bad though, just because of that. Like the use of Alastor is so little. Even in the Norska Vampire Counts matchup, there are lots of lots that we would prefer to have him over, like Teclis or like Eltharion. Spoiler alert.
I mean, yeah, it's just yet another dragon character, and I agree with you completely. It's so expensive, and we have so many good lords that it's almost a waste to give him a slot. But as a dragon character with the niche of flaming imbuement, he's not necessarily useless.
Heading to the next lot, the first faction core lot that we got, the Archmage, that you could honestly bring in every single matchup and be just fine with it. It is a castle lot, which saves a lot of money for your already expensive roster. She got incredibly good items, which are Armor of the Stars, and she's just so cheap. There's just no reason to not bring her.
I agree. There's so many good lords. decent price, can take on a dragon, can take on an eagle, can take on a horse. A good item selection all around. A very, very powerful choice.
You guys nailed it.
All right. So the next one is Oltarion, another instant S tier. Since he got the Mistwalker's Barrage buffed with it, he absolutely shreds anything, mostly cavalry. Can heal himself, has high magic, which is okay, but also says just this not for a caster. Has terror, decent duelist, nice items in the Fang Sword mostly. What do you guys think, Stingers?
Yeah, so I think his big selling point is that Mistwalker's Barrage. It will absolutely decimate armored cavalry. Altharion can put in some work for you against the mobile forces.
Nothing to add. Certified S tier.
All right, so now we're starting off with my boy Imrik. I'm an Imrik stan. I love him. I think he goes all the way up into faction core. No, I'm just kidding. So Imrik is a solid B tier is where we put him. I personally really like him. I love the fire resist. His Star Dragon gets a little bit of extra stats. His items are what really sell it for me. I love Lord of Dragons debuff. I used to like the attack horn, but I haven't been doing those rushes much lately. The things that keep him out of being very good are his price. I think he can get up to 3,100. It's just like he's a great duelist, but Heil's got a cost problem. You can't be spending 3,100 on your Lord just to do a little bit extra damage.
He's definitely a very expensive character, very good character also. But a problem that I find with him is when we spend so much money, this expensive of a character, we also need to bring a mage that specifically has healing that we might not necessarily want to in the matchup we bring him. And I find myself on very open maps that the opponent just doesn't let him to get in any good fights. But I just think he doesn't have enough play for his cost.
I kind of agree, because when you take a dragon character, whether the dragon has 70 melee attack or it has 50 melee attack, it's not that much of a difference. The duelist stats that you pay a lot for, in this case, it's still going to be a dragon, and it's still going to be doing dragon things. That's why he's in B.
Alright, next up we got the Prince, and definitely not the Emperor. I think this guy is just bad. And the reason why he's bad is that he tries to be Imrik while just being worse. He's also cheaper, but he definitely doesn't do the job that Imrik does well enough, in my opinion. He definitely doesn't buff the all army and doesn't have all the nice resistances that Imrik have. And if I just think in which matchup would I like to have this guy over a basic Star Dragon or like an Archmage on a Dragon, I just cannot think of any matchup. That's why I think he's just bad.
Basically what you said, not much to add here. A very generic Lord. If you're taking a dragon or a dragon character, why not take Imrik if you want a strong duelist, or take an Archmage on a dragon if you basically the same price, if not cheaper, and get spells.
Ultimately, I agree with you guys. I never take him.
Right, so the next one is Princess. Very similar to a Prince. She belongs in the D tier. Unfortunately, because I actually have played around with her a bit and have had some success, but it's basically the same as with Prince, except you also have a ranged attack and a volley of high arrows, which is basically a slightly weaker arrows of Kernos. But if you're taking her on a dragon, why not take another dragon character? And if you want to take her on a griffin, why not Altarion?
Yeah, these are all good points. We might think the high volley could be nice because it is AOK, which is arrows of Kernos that might be really useful in a lot of matchups that are for Bulldogs. But unfortunately, it has got like only 100-meter range, so there is not too much use even for that.
Yeah, and finally, her missile strength values are still in the old Warhammer useless days. Some characters got upgrades for their missile strength or missile capabilities, and others have been left behind the dust, and she's one of those. All right, so now we got big boy Teclis. He, in my opinion, is faction core. He can be brought in any matchup. His spell list is super versatile, so he can do well in any matchup. And if you go for a damage, he can pay for like 2,000 more than his cost. He is an expensive boy on Phoenix. I like to run him on horse too. He's got that utility of the potion to help protect him. He's got Fiery Convocation to help do more AoE.
If it was techless only on his Phoenix, he probably would go down to solid just because of how expensive he is. Without the Phoenix though, or like with the ability to have the Phoenix and being on horse, he just has an incredibly good spell law, which is Knight of Amentok, the best spell of Lore of Light, Regrowth, which is the best heal of Lore of Life. He got Flock of Doom, which is the best spell of Lore of Beast, and these are the basically 3 spells that you want to bring all the time.
I agree completely. If you don't want to decide which lore to take, why not take all of them? With Sword of Techless, with Greater Conduit, basically very fast one region, infinite magic.
So with the next very low that we got Tyrion, Erevenarian. Tyrion is a very good duelist. He's on a horse, so he can't really be sniped by almost any of the missile enemy units, like the artillery. He got his Heart of Avalorn, which also makes him incredibly hard to snipe, even in melee. And I think just because of that, while also being not too expensive, he's a pretty solid lot.
Yep, I think he could be in C also, but boy, he's got stats, and he's going to... If he gets to duel, he will duel everything. Maybe not everything, but he will do very well. It's just the nature of being a horse character is very hard for him to get the fight he wants to.
He definitely has games where he does great for me and games where he lets it down, and it's all because of his low HP and that horse mount. Those are the 2 things that are holding him back from A and S tier, for sure.
Correct. Next up is Seahelm, a generic lord newly added with Tides of Torment. That is incredibly bad. it's so expensive. You can make a point that he's a cheap foot lord. He's anti-large, but he's 750 without any abilities or items, and he has no agency. And I don't think he brings anything to the table on any of his mounts.
Yeah, at that point, just bring a cheap mage lord if you want to go cheap.
Yeah, like the Archmage probably costs around like 600, 700 if you bring just a few spells. Why would you pay all of that to just have a melee lot that doesn't do anything on the battlefield?
All right, next up we got Azelin. So Azelin we put in C tier. His ability is super cool, but the nerf it took kind of ruined it for me. Only 50% range. It's kind of really easy to misjudge how much range you're about to get. At least that's happened to me a couple times since using him. He is a cheaper Star Dragon than others, which was nice, but yeah, as soon as you buy that magical item, that puts him up back at the same price as the others, and magical attacks isn't that big of a deal. So keep him niche. You can bring him if you want to have fun, but mostly if you're trying to be competitive, he's not going to do insane or really surprise you much.
I think he actually might have some competitive play, and that I think it is like the only reason why he isn't bad. So surprising your opponent is one. When you go for like triple Shadow Walker and they overextend their artillery, or like the Jezzail, or the ability, even with its nerf, has some potential. But mostly why I think he's niche is because of his anti-infantry and the Skycutter mount. The Skycutter mount on Azelin does incredible value to infantry, while also not dying to cavalry, monsters, infantry, and SEs right away.
One more question. What's the difference between him on his Sky Mount and the Mace Mage on her Sky Mount?
The difference is the bonus versus infantry that Azelin gets. And I believe he also got the better stats overall. I found the mismatch being way squishier and taking a lot of, not a lot of, but way more damage than Azelin is taken. Alright, so we finished the lot section, we go to the heroes. And first of the heroes, we got the new freshly added hero, which is Karajan. An incredibly strong duelist. With his Mortis engine, he's got potential for incredible values. The main problem being your opponent if he's good enough, he's not gonna let him do any value with this Mortis engine, because if he gets below 25%, it requires 1 or 2 any SC attack on him to get insta-routed or dead. Even with that, he's still an incredibly strong duelist, fire weakness on contact, having a Phoenix that is actually unique. Both gives the Frost Heart Phoenix while also having fire attacks as like a semi-fire Phoenix. And just because of how good of a duelist he is, I think he's like B tier at least. What do you think, guys?
I would maybe even put him in a. I think he's like the best, like one of the best duelists we have. Him next to one of our strong lords. He can be on a horse, can be on the Phoenix, can have all his abilities and items, can have none, and he's going to be strong either way.
Yeah, I heavily agree with that. I like A for him too. He gets me crazy value. He's a great combat character, and I do like the utility of all his abilities.
All right, A tier it is.
Next up is Handmaiden of the Everqueen. Another hero that is quite sad because her missile attack is just too weak. And she gets expensive very quickly if you want to take any of her items or abilities. I think she's just plain bad. She's D tier.
I agree. You think you bring her to... She has that hybrid anti-large, but then she gets smacked in any large fight she tries to go into. So, she's on horse, so she can't even attack those large targets if they don't want her to.
I think that if she only had the missiles like the Waystalker, which are homing, should be definitely even a good hero. Problem is, it never hits what you want because it is not homing. It doesn't do damage, and bring her just with her like cheapest kit on a horse. It's like 950 gold. And there are quite a few units that you would prefer to have for this 950 gold, like 2 archers, which would do way more than her. I definitely agree with the D bot tier.
All right, next we got the mage. This is another S tier character right off the bat. You can bring this in any matchup. It will always do well. It can have a cheap roll for you. It can have an expensive roll for you. I also love the Starwood Staff. That's a great item.
You can, as you said, go for the items which actually make her S tier. The items that allow high elves to have basically infinite magic and go for some crazy magic combos. Like go for Alariel with her heals and blob up, and then also go for another caster with final transmutation, because you have this much magic and you can allow to blob up, heal, and then final transmute your enemy and just be fine. So her carry potential in this matter is huge.
Yeah, Elves are one of the few factions that you actually can bring more than one caster with multiple lores and get away with it. I'll also add that the mage on foot is only 300 and she's stupid tanky for a caster.
Alright, next up we got the new Mist Mage. I have had quite a few fun experiences with the Mist Mage, also against matchup of dwarves that I was talking about with the Skycutter Chariot, which was thinking can have some uses on the Mist Mage, but it makes our caster way too expensive for what he does on this Skycutter. The only mods are like Eagle, but Eagle is a good mount. And being able to summon Ocean is basically anywhere on the map with this mobility doesn't make him useless. The lore is, I believe, the cheapest lore in the game, with some pretty good spells, mostly the Shroud of Ladriel with the heal and Vigor Reset. Vigor Reset on itself, I think, is very underrated. The Fizzer's buff, and first and foremost, the Ocean Sound. I think he's at least solid.
Yeah, I think solid for me too. It's just, do you want Mist Magic or not? If you want, take the character. If not, don't bother.
Yeah, I'll give a little shout out. I feel like he's kind of creeping into A for me. The summon, like you talked about, so good. I love having an extra unit on the field, and it does just... Sometimes high elves can struggle to win that front line, and now all of a sudden I'm having a whole unit free a minute or two earlier because that Oceanid summon won that pocket of the front line for me. And then, yeah, like you guys said, the heal, the vigor. So my vote would be A, but I think B is still a fantastic spot for it too.
Okay, so next up is Lore Master of Hoeth. For me, it's like the very definition of a solid character. I would put the guy in B tier. Very good spells. Spirit Leech, Earthblood, Melkov's Shems is also decent. Blessed Tome is a newly added item that gives your elite units a lot of oomph in the grind. However, he is only 3600 HP, and he's on foot. So getting to cast these spells, most of which have low range, is going to be rough.
I'll do the devil's advocate again. He's another A character for me, so I like to bring him with Melkoth and Earthblood, which is crazy because I love Spirit Leech as a spell too, but I mean I haven't even needed to use that yet. So Melkoth, you can just overcast it and get 300 range, which I think negates his on foot. And he's also just a nasty little fighter. If a big monster comes and tries to eat him, yeah, sometimes that 3600 HP is rough, but he pops an Earthblood on himself and he can hang in there. He gets me like 1400 value a game usually, and while costing like 900 to 1000, and I've loved his items as well, especially the Blessed Tome. I think it also enables some more elite builds that just destroy others. So that's why I would go for A. But yeah, that foot and the HP, that is a rough, especially since he's competing with the mage too. So I could see B being solid too.
Yeah, for me, he's way more B than A, mostly when I think the matchups that I use him. And also, as PiZu said, Melkoths and Spirit Leech are both very good spells that you would like to bring on him, but they're just 100-meter range. And when I bring Melkoths on him, I usually bring only Melkoths, or like Melkoths and Earthblood only, and don't use the Earthblood at all, because I do have to overcast all the Melkoths to do any value. And just that, while also having very good spells, but being pretty limited, I definitely see uses for him, like in the Wood Elf matchup when he's not getting sniped by waste tokens because he's got a lot of armor. He's got his cases, but I think the mage and the use of the mage just makes him drop down right to the solid.
All right, and then we got the Noble. So the Noble's a decent combatant. I think I would put him in C. I never really go for double Noble horse strats. I hear that that's good, but I think he's kind of squishy on the horse. He just gets slapped around, and once again, horse problems. If you run away from the horse, usually it's hard for them to catch you. So it's been a long time since I've brought him. His other mounts aren't great. He loses everything on the eagle. His chariot can't really hit or kill any infantry. So especially with the addition of Caradhran, I just don't see why you would go for this character. He works, so that's why he's not bad. Like, he at least will get his gold value worth if you put him in the situations he's supposed to, but yeah, niche for me.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put him higher than C. When I think about bringing double Noble, I could go for like Tyrion and be just okay with the dueling capabilities of Tyrion himself than two Nobles. And when you just think in what matchups you bring him, I'm thinking like Tomb King's Empire, and nothing else is in my mind where I could go for him. And even in both of these matchups, he can turn out to be extremely bad. I would even consider putting him lower, but niche is, I think, a right tier for him.
I think his niche. It can be used, but there are so many better choices.
Alright, next up we got the Ship's Company, also the DLC unit. There was a lot of hype about Ship's Company before it was released, the final chaff unit for the High Elves, the unit that was meant to make the roster cheaper. And it was very surprising to us all that the unit kind of underperformed for its cost. Like, the cost is good, but when you compare them to Empire Swordsman, like the Ship's Company could be like 20-25 gold cheaper, just because it doesn't stay as long as Spearman, and you would like to bring it in matchups when you rush your enemy, which are like Tomb Kings, Skaven, Vampire Coast, not Counts, definitely not Counts. It is still a cheap unit that has a lot of use just because of its price, but I wouldn't go with it higher than Solid.
I agree with Solid. They are the cheaper option for our frontline infantry, and they are indeed cheaper. They get us quite a bit of more funds to play around with, with in other parts of the army. However, the classic Elven low HP pools just make them not very strong.
Yeah, on average, they get about 300 gold for me, which is like fantastic, but that's still 100 gold less, or 100 gold that my other parts of the build need to make up for. Yeah, B for sure.
They do not do anything versus armor, which is like Spearmen at least hold against armor. They do not. They're meant to be an offensive unit, and they are decent at it, but definitely not excellent.
Next one is the Regiment of Renown of Ship's Company, a decently cheap armor-piercing great weapon infantry. I would put them B, borderline A. Good rank 9 stats, also martial mastery, not only martial prowess. They have the oomph, they have the naval discipline, a very nice aura. Overall, if you expect armor, you can safely take them.
Yeah, I think I would go for A. Just so much stats for how much gold they are. I think they're one of those RORs that it's just like, man, this is just such a good deal gold-wise. But that being said, I have been taking them pretty like auto-take, and they haven't been always doing the best for me, so I can see B as well.
I think I would very much consider putting them in A. As you said, they have martial mastery, which gives them incredible stats for 625 gold. They are almost 200 gold cheaper than the next armor piercing unit that we have. They provide a very good aura, which I believe is like 55 meters. And the unit just with stats and the AP was really performing for me each time that I brought it. I think it is A.
All right, now we got our basic spearmen. I think this unit is just a solid B tier. I was hoping Ship's Company creating some space for them would really carve out that niche to let them fight large targets and not have to continuously suffer against all the chaff in the game, but it hasn't made too much of a difference for me. Low HP, low armor. All you really need to do to kill these units is either hit them with a spell, which is some good solid 500 gold value, or tie them up with your cheapest unit and then hit them with any other unit you have available, anything, and they will lose chunks of HP quick. But they have great holding power. They do trade very well into chaff for being a spear unit. So yeah, I think they're close to being an A. I honestly would just a tiny 25 gold buff, or I don't know, a little bit more MA, and I think they're an A tier unit, but I think they got to stay in that B tier just because of how much they usually downtrade for me.
I think there is a case for them to be A tier, which might surprise a lot because I just criticized Ship's Company. But being 50 melee defense just for 500 gold, the holding power that they have when opponent doesn't have crazy weapon strength. But if you do not hit them with a spell, they hold for a really long time, and you could bring them in a lot of matchups, and just having this unit as your holding piece in your army, I could see them being A.
I could see them being A, but I think we should leave them in B just because they do not sound as a very good unit. They are our holding infantry, and they hold, and they do okay in an infantry fight for a spear, but that's it. They are overpriced on an overpriced roster. I would leave them in B.
Alright, B tier it is. And next up we got the ROR Spearmen, which are even more expensive because they're the ROR. So it is a 55 range ability, which gives like 10% of ward save, I believe, if you have more than 15 winds of magic, which you might think is good, but it is a 50 gold cheaper than the Silverin Guard unit that you would prefer to have over it way more. They still have only 40 armor, so a Burning Head, a Pendulum will insta-kill them, and 800 gold in this expensive roster is quite a lot. I think they're like D, maybe C.
For me, they are literally D never take. There are literally Silvery next to them, as you said. They just don't have anything going for them for this much of a price increase.
Yep, agreed. B tier for me too.
Right, next up we have Rangers. Rangers, I would put them in B just because of their speed and Vanguard deployment. They are okay as a chaff blenders, but they are very fragile, and they tend to trade down against units that you would not expect them to trade down. But they are a very good mid to late game summon to get some help for our large units to clear the infantry.
Yeah, those recent buffs got them into B tier for me. I do agree that like if you put them in an engagement they like, they will do very well. I've actually gotten them to get above their value, since those buffs, which was never the case before. Yeah, I've been relying on the Vanguard heavily because if you don't get them exactly where they need to be, they get charged and they die instantly and trade horribly.
They're definitely solid mostly to this Vanguard deployment, which is incredibly important for Domination. Ship's company is underperforming, and that is why Rangers still hold their place.
Yep. All right, so now we got Silver and Guard. These guys are honestly great units, but I would put them in B. I think what keeps them out of A tier is their price and their lack of offensive capabilities in Domination. In Domination, if I bring a front line of them, I usually find myself getting stuffed back on my far objective. I never lose my far objective, but I also struggle to get back out onto the other points too. But fantastic spearman unit. They get some extra tankiness through their armor and spell resistance, and they also get some extra weapon strength through their bonus versus large too. So if they're put in the right spot, they can do very well.
Yeah, they're the most holding infantry that there is. I actually think that they are. I would say they are a better unit than the Spearman, but they are 350 gold more expensive, which is, as I said before many times, incredibly important for this roster. But as you said, their lack of presence on mostly the big maps, when you just find them fighting like cheap stuff and your opponent outmaneuvering them.
Yeah, also B for me. I actually like them a lot. I'm a Silver Instant. If you want really a pocket or a place where you can retreat to with your, for example, kiting units, you can just park them there and they will not die for the entire game. However, just because of their cost, which means they will get outnumbered and just walked around, they stay in B.
Yep. Next up we got the White Lions of Craze, a good old Warhammer 2 unit. I was thinking that they're really reliable armor-piercing, good stats infantry. But it is kind of similar case of the ship's company. The only problem being is they're twice the cost. They have this nice missile resist, but I just find them underperforming so much for what they cost. They're still good to clear armored cheaper infantry while being immune to cheap fire, like against Cafe or against Dwarfs. They're an amazing unit, but there's just not a lot of matchups that you'd really want them either as an anti-infantry or anti-cavalry too. I think they're C at best.
I think they are the biggest bait unit on the roster, and especially specifically infantry. A generalist great weapon unit, the missile resist is just about the same as a bronze shield, and they just don't deliver when you bring them. Usually, this is exactly a niche unit.
Yep, completely agree. If it was just dwarfs, Jade Warriors and Chaos Warriors in the game, then they would be S tier all the way. But unfortunately, they struggle and die in every other scenario for me. I also agree that they're a ginormous bait unit.
Next up, we have the Pure Main Company, the White Lions of Craze Regiment of Renown, right next to the regular unit. It's basically the same unit. It has Guardian, which is mostly useless on an infantry unit. It has Armor Sundering, but it costs only 200 more gold, so it gets quite a lot for that price. Everything that we said about the non-armor one applies to this one as well.
Yep, exactly. I'll upgrade them if I have the gold, but I don't really feel the difference.
Yep, I was finding the Armor Sundering pretty useful on a lot of cheap archers roster, but being 1,000 gold and being not too good of a melee unit for its cost, I think if both these White Lions were like 100 gold cheaper, they would surely be a really good unit, but for this price, they're just not. I think they're niche as well.
All right, next up we got my favorite unit in the entire game. Let's go, Swordmasters. Oh no, get them out of there. How dare you? No, so a little bit of bias here, obviously, but I think they're B tier solid now. They would have been C tier or D tier before, but I think their buffs, that extra charge bonus, that extra melee attack and weapon strength into infantry, was fantastic. They heal well. Oh, and the armor. The armor helps them mitigate damage from large targets when they inevitably get caught out and isolated by some large. They can hang in there, especially with healing support now. The Lore Master item supports them. Karajan supports them. We like healing on High Elves a lot. I think you can make some solid, cool builds around Elite Swordmasters and not shoot yourself in the foot, which is pretty solid to me.
Yeah, I could see them being in B, but I could just as well see them in C. They are the difference between them and the White Lions, though, is that they actually do their job. They are pretty resistant to all the missile units, to their blocking missiles with their mighty swords, especially the cheap archers and the crossbows and also. And they clear all the armored infantry and not all the not armored infantry. They're just good at the job.
Yep, I see them in B also. Very nice damage output, but they suffer from being a very expensive slow elite infantry and being vulnerable to artillery, to magic, to cavalry. And
The Swordmaster Aurora, 300 gold more expensive than the basic one, having magical attacks, extremely useful against all the demon factions, and extremely useful in Warhammer 3 overall. Having spell resist, which is some of the most trouble for all the elite infantry, been deleted by spells. They have this very nice spell resist and have incredible stats, and they're like, I think, the best melee infantry unit in the game when it comes to doing, maybe leaving place for the Aurora Wrathmongers. And I actually would, when I go for Swordmaster, I probably would go for the Aurora maybe even more often than the basic one, because I want it to do the job even better. So that, for this reason, I would go for the B tier as well.
right next to each other, a lot more expensive, but worth the money if you have it. Okay, so the next one is Phoenix Guard. They wish they were Swordmasters, to be honest. Also, the same cost, an armor-piercing, anti-large, unshielded unit. They grind very well, they just do damage very, very slowly if it's not against a large target, and they have trouble catching up to large targets because they are an infantry unit. So they can be brought, but do not expect too much out of them. Classic elite infantry weaknesses, C tier for me.
Yeah, I think the funniest part about it is like Swordmasters will get some extra value because they'll charge their large into them, and then you'll heal them, and they'll do some good damage, like we were talking about earlier. Phoenix Guard, just nobody will run into them. They just always run away. So they don't even get that opportunity to fight the large. And they can't clear the infantry as fast as the Swordmasters do. So they end up just kind of running around the match.
Yep, I agree with that. Not too much to say more.
All right, then we got the ROR. It gets immune to contact effects, which is a pretty nice buff, and magical attacks. And it gets like a little explosion on death that doesn't really do much. I would say C tier. The magical attacks is great. Immune to contacts is great. You know, I think it's a nice upgrade of your gold, but still struggles from all the same things as the regular Phoenix Guard.
I could also add that the explosion of the RR is pretty sad when we compare it to the Sour Guts. Next up, we got the Archers. In my opinion, pretty core unit of all the entire faction. They're 450 gold, incredible leadership, the highest range of all the Archers, excluding the Way Watchers. 180 is a lot. They pay for themselves real quick. It is enough that your opponent just messes up his Marauder Horseman for a few seconds and bang 3 volleys and the unit paid for itself. You can bring it in basically any matchup and be fine, even if you lose them, because they do their value like basically all the time, while also having heavy carry potential if you bring a lot of them. I think they're a faction core unit.
Low key, I think we can just do all three right now, because I agree.
We can put all 3 of them in S tier because light armor archers are just a simple. If you have the money, you should upgrade. More archer dueling potential, small arms fire, and maybe some light cav. Generally a worthwhile upgrade. And talons are just another light armor archer that has with its imbuement of fire weakness. Even if you don't have any other fire damage in your army. Them doing fire damage and taking advantage of their own weakness makes them a very, very high damage unit. Alright, next up we have Lodern Sigurd. This is sadly not campaign. I would put them C. They want to be an archer, but are worse than an archer. They want to be a spear. They don't really want to fight. They don't generate a lot of value in melee. And if you run out of archers, or you want a little bit more spears, you can take 2 of them. But outside, they have some other. There are some uses for them, but nothing too spectacular.
Yeah, I think we can do the shields with this one too. I think they're both C tier. Like PiZu said, they have some matchups. I like them into Empire, Wood Elves, Ogre Kingdoms, and then the list kind of fades off right there. C tier. They're unless they're shooting, they are losing me gold.
Yeah, it is a shame. They probably end up here mostly due to the basic archer just outperforming them. If we want our Lodern Sigurds to do incredible value, they really need to shoot. And them having spears being able to defend against factions like Bretonia and even not so Bretonia because expensive, armored calf will run over them. Against Ogre Kingdoms. They have their uses, but unfortunately, if we want our archers to shoot, we just go basic archers, and they stay kind of niche.
Yep, agreed. But that leaves the ROR. That is going up into the S tier. At first, I was sort of like a hater. I still hate how quickly these guys die in melee. They still suffer from all those other parts, but Czarix and PiZu did some good convincing for me, and they are often in my builds. Vanguard and Fire while moving helps them get a ton more DPS out. So I'm always calling them out. And then secondly, as long as they're not getting hit by a super, super high DPS unit, then they will still last long enough for you to come and help screen whatever's attacking them. The shots they took on the way to that fight also help them get their value, and they're usually paying for themselves or getting like 1100 for me. So that's why they're usually worth being in your reinforcement pool.
Yep, exactly. Also, the problem of the Lodern Sigurds overall are that they're an incredibly static unit. Like, you cannot really move them around too much. What you cannot say about the ROR, which has fire at moving. So even if your opponents send something at this unit, when you summon it from Vanguard, when there's already less stuff that can interrupt the Lodern Sigurds, they do value all the time.
In my humble opinion, the most consistent regiment of renown at getting its value back and then some.
And next up we got my beloved, my Shadow Warriors. The unit with incredibly carry potential, the core of the High Elf Kite overall. Very good melee stats, very good leadership. Not 0 armor, which can actually help them at not being insta-deleted. Stock 360, a lot of DPS if needed. We have Plague of Rust with infinite magic, which can also make them deal with armored stuff. I think they're at least A tier, if not S tier. Pretty much the same with the ROR. There's not too much difference with them.
Oh, really? Interesting. Because
I
for
think
the
so.
ROR, I just never found them worth to upgrade. They are also very close to S tier for me. It's just that Foot Kite archetype is just so hard to pull off, and it doesn't forgive any mistakes, that it's not really a core playstyle, but it's something you can always bring out and do very well with it.
I like to call these guys the anti-infantry or chaff version. Their arrows spread out enough that they actually can hit cavalry and infantry better than their counterpart, as we're about to get into.
Yes.
And don't you have any arguments against the Grey? I actually, before I put them in here, had a thought that the upgrade is pretty expensive, but then they are the cause of the Shadow Walkers, and they are snipe, which makes them incredibly good.
I'm not fully convinced, to be honest. They, like as you said, they are good against other kite builds, so that's niche for me. And they, if I want to play over 1k for a Foot Kite unit, I'm taking a Shadow Walker.
Yeah, I think with Shadow Walkers doing so well, I usually like to just combine them and stay away from the ROR.
I wouldn't put them lower than the B. There's the Shadow Warriors. They, if you have the extra 50 gold out of Shadow Walker, and have the invisible snipe unit, why not bring them? Okay, next
All
up.
right. Next up, we have Shadow Walkers, an upgraded version of the Shadow Warriors. They get bonus versus infantry in melee. They get poison arrows and melee attacks. They get better stats. And their biggest advantage over the Shadow Warriors is their accuracy. They actually are way better at sniping monsters, single entities, characters. 2 Shadow Walkers can outdamage, I think, 4 or 5 Shadow Warriors against a horse character.
Oh, it is insane.
Yep, exactly that. I actually lost a game because I was trying to skirmish infantry, and when I watched the replay, I saw that they were all hitting the same infantry model, and I was wasting tons of ammo. They are so insanely accurate. They are a great unit.
Yeah, I think they're actually better than the basic Shadow Warriors and worth the upgrade all the time if you only have the money. I could also see an argument for them to be S tier, but as you said, it's probably Foot Kite is probably too niche of a playstyle to be a faction core.
All right, so next we got Sisters. So Sisters for me are kind of either C or B. At first, I kind of had them in B. I liked Caradrin, getting that upgrade, but I think I'm gonna say C and see what you guys think. I think they're still just kind of low DPS for me for the price that they offer. So I think they get hit by artillery a lot, and as soon as you bring them, every caster, every cavalry charge, every opponent is just like, bet, I just have to shut down that unit. And that's kind of often what happens. Yeah, C or B for me.
I think it goes probably the same with the aura. The upgrade for power recharge of the aura is like decent, and it has better reload time due to the chevrons, so probably it is around the same tier. But I would put them B just because of how much they can do.
I'm fine with the regular one in B, with the ROR in C, because the ROR is just that much more expensive, and it's even more gold for the enemy spells. I think they have insane damage, but they are just so hard to make them work as a win condition.
Next up, we got the very only, or almost the very only artillery in the roster, which is the Eagle Claw bolt thrower. It probably doesn't go higher than C tier in my opinion. And why is that? And that is probably because the uses of the unit is not too much of the matchups. It doesn't really snipe opponent artillery. Like, it has 340 range, which is almost 100 less than a basic cannon has. So it is not doing that. It is doing pretty good damage against large things. It does 0 damage to infantry, and it is just a static RT unit that, without any big expensive targets, doesn't do the job.
It's a purely psychological unit. It does damage so slowly, it's almost guaranteed to not pay for itself before the game is concluded.
Honestly, I might, after listening to us talk, I might want to move that down into D, because I agree. The only time I bring them is for an RD sniping role, which, like you said, into some RD factions, you have to like finagle and work, and then even if you do snipe the RD, now the bolt thrower is way up farther than it needs to be, and you're trying to protect it, and it goes horribly. And the only other use case for it after that is I shoot bow shopty with it, but that's it.
All right, and next up we have Sky Cutters. These are bolt throwers, right?
They're
This is
the bolt throwers,
icon.
right?
And for me, they are C or D. They are double the price of a bolt thrower.
D.
I mean, they do Sky Cutter things, like they can chariot through some infantry. It's just whenever I look at the unit card in the army building screen, and I think about paying 1,400 for this.
Yeah, so I agree with C. I think my biggest gripe with this unit is I'm actually having a decently hard time dodging with it. Even just like horseman jabs are getting loads of damage off per volleys, and I have to run away and go super, super far away to try and shoot and skirmish, because if I only go a short distance, they just run back up and try to get another volley. The extra gold doesn't seem worth it over the other unit. It doesn't even snipe already, which is what I wanted it to do.
And if the opponent just doesn't have has a lot of big stuff and has nothing against the air units, then it is going to carry you the game. But what is the chance of that, right? Like, I would agree with C.
All right, so now we got the Archer variant. This one we decided on B. It's got that perfect 1150 price range. Its ammo is nice. They keep shooting while you charge it in. It's got some magical attacks. I do agree that charging these guys in sometimes is fantastic, and other times it's not at all. Even if you land it, it still seems to require multiple units so you can stack them up and really get the charge animation. Otherwise, they kind of stop short. But they do be getting their value back throughout a match, especially if you take care of them, cycle charge them in and out, so they don't deserve to be the same tier as the bolt thrower.
Yep. They're cheaper, they do the same job of distracting your opponent by being flying. I do have a feeling that they have, if not a better overall DPS with almost no need to micro them. Next up we got the Tyrannoc Chariots. Unit good versus not armored infantry, heavily armored, pretty bad versus anything that is more than like a 50 armor.
Yeah, these are Lemur chariots, by the way. I think the melee ones are Lemur, Tyrannoc, or T-Range.
Oh yeah, these are the much the Tyrannoc are the
Yes,
the bow ones.
but I agree with Niche. They are good for running over the Riots, for running over maybe some skinks, but not spectacular.
Yep, they do their job versus lightly armored infantry. Can't ask for more than that. Doesn't have the greatest applications, but yeah, they do their job to be bad. So.
Okay, next up we have Tyrannoc chariots, the Skirmish variant of the light high-level chariot. I'm honestly on the fence between C and D. I don't know about the they don't seem to do a lot of damage with their bows. They are not Scourge Runner chariots. They have no armor piercing. They have 50 ammo, which they will never get out during the game. And overall, just there's hardly a place for them in most armies.
I agree. I never bring them. I've heard some uses versus like flesh hounds or demons because they're magical attacks, but I would just rather put my gold into other stuff.
Yeah, also if you want magical arrows, why don't you go with Sky Cutters that are flying and can actually do well in melee if charged properly. I would say they're just about unit.
On to the next one. White Lion chariots. I love this chariot. I think it has some pretty degenerate play if you start stacking them, which is annoying. But if you don't stack them and do that degenerate play, I think they're still a great either B or A tier unit. I personally like them in A. I think if you bring two of them, heal them, cycle charge them efficiently, they will get about like 300 gold more than what you paid for them. They will clear the front line like they're supposed to, and you can do it into all kinds of matchups because they hit lightly armored infantry troops just as hard as they hit some of the armored ones.
I could see this unit in A, although when I compare them to all the other A tier units, I do not think they are this good. They're definitely solid. They will not go lower than B in my opinion. They do the job, as you said. They're missile resistance. They have a lot of weapon damage.
That's interesting. I actually use them a lot. I would put them in A. I think most armies can actually just get away with like having one of them every time.
Yeah, well, I could maybe say it. You have a lot of heals, and they also do not do bad when they face cavalry, which are meant to counter them. Well, A tier it is. And next up to the cavalry, we got the Illyrian Reavers, the very faction core. You want these guys, and think I will not lie if I said in every single matchup that there is for high elves in the game. Very cheap for 550 gold. You want them in reinforcements all the time.
I would say they are one of the most cost-effective light cavalry in the game, and they are absolutely necessary for most of the high elf armies to work, if not all of them.
Yep, nailed it on the head.
Right, next up we have Silver Helms. I would also put them in S tier. Post the slight buffs they received some time ago, they are a very solid unit. They do okay on a charge. They have 100 armor, which is a lot of armor. They basically synergize very well with the rest of the roster. So it's usually very, very useful to have 2 or 3 of them, if not more sometimes.
Yep, their buffs were perfect in my opinion. They'd be getting me 1100, 1000. They pay for themselves often. I think that 10 armor was really essential for them.
This buff got them up. They're what Illyrian Rivers are, but for the cost that you paid to get them, they way more than give back.
All right, so for the shields, it's all the same stuff except A tier just because the Silver Helm without the shields kind of overperforms versus the shielded one. You save 400 gold by going 4 non-shielded ones versus 4 shielded ones, and the 8 MD is certainly very good, and the shield is worth it when you want it, but I find myself, unless I'm going into like Wood Elves, often skipping out on the shield.
All right, next up we got the Dragon Princes. And the Dragon Princes are an incredibly strong cavalry on their own, with very heavy carry potential, fizz resist, fire resist, 80 charge bonus, which is huge, a lot of stats, a lot of armor. What is not to love? That said, they're still not an AP unit for 1.4k gold, which is quite a lot. I think they're like high B or A tier.
I'm leaning towards B. I think they are one of the strongest shock cavalry in the game. That's not monstrous. However, they are 1400 gold, and if they get outnumbered, they get bogged down in spears, they get spelled down, or they get shot, they suffer a lot. Even if you heal them, they require a lot of babysitting and creating a perfect situation for them to carry.
All right, so I'll be the odd man out here. I would put them in A for sure, but I would even make an argument for S. In my opinion, they have, since they got their plus 10 armor buff, they have not failed to pay for themselves a single time for me. And most of my games, I've been seeing 1700, 1800, 2200 value, like even sometimes performing the Fireborn simply because nobody's respecting them and they're always respecting the Fireborn, but these guys are running through everything. I think their charge bonus helps them hit into those armor targets better than you would expect, and their tankiness is fantastic. Even if I'm not running healing, I've still been getting them to pay for themselves. So I think the unit's perfectly balanced. I freaking love it. It comes in hammers, so I think S tier, but A or B.
I think they would be a certified A tier, just if not the fact that we have silver helms that do fill the role of armor cavalry and reinforcements. And of course, if you want more punch, we would go for Dragon Princes. But if you go for Dragon Princes, they're so expensive, you kind of expect them to do a lot of your value on the battlefield, where you not necessarily expect that from the silver helms. And just because of that, I do not see a lot of matchups that you would really want them. That's why I would say them with B.
I kind of agree with B.
B sounds good.
Next, we have Fireborn. That's definitely an S tier regiment of renown for Dragon Princes. This is a unit that every opponent dreads that you will bring, and if you bring it and they will not have an answer for it, they might actually lose the game on the spot. This is anti-large, armor-piercing, very elite cavalry. That's one of the biggest carry pieces for High Elves. The only situation where you would not want to bring them are if you expect them to have a very good counter, or you are playing against dwarves.
Yep, I mean they come in and they destroy everything they touch. And at the very least, even if you get them in a bad situation, they still will at least get their value or trade even. I will say I do think if you have to be careful with them, Melkoths or other counters will straight up kill them with 0 value gained, and then you're pretty sad, and that basically auto loses you the game most times if you lose your Fireborn. But they are very, very strong, especially if you're patient and skilled with them.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about how bad it is for a unit to be expensive, and that's why we are putting it lower. This unit being incredibly expensive going into S tier just tells how incredibly powerful this unit is, and how many games it can carry just on itself if you bring like a Regrowth caster.
That's a great point. All right, so now we got another faction core. They're just getting listed off right now with the Reaver Archers.
Yeah.
This unit is one of the best hybrid units in the game. It's both range and melee prowess is extremely respected. I love hybrid units. They're my favorite. So seeing this one do well is always great. I love to skirmish with them. And then if my opponent isn't respecting them, I'll do a little face charge and run right away and continue skirmishing. They often get their value back. You can bring them in many, many matchups just because they work just like Reavers. And I think their biggest use case is if you take 4 of them, you can snipe a lot of SEs that are lightly armored.
I think we could put our River Archer in the S tier as well, being, I believe, the fastest cavalry in the game, the Aroa. As you said, they're just the Illyrian Reavers. The only thing that they have is charge bonus, while having pretty good missile output. They're the Reavers that you want to bring out if you do not expect them to fight in melee. Like this is the unit that you send the points all the time when it is empty. What's not to love?
Yeah, this is a unit that will almost guaranteed pay for itself, given some minimal micro, and can perform as a light cav. The ROR especially has both the range attacks, the speed, and the charge bonus of a regular river, so it's very good for.
All right. Next up, we got the War Lions. So not the White Lions, the War Lions this time, and they're actually better than their Elf counterparts. And I think they're a solid overall unit. Strong, very strong at getting at the opponent missile line, due to having 24 models only and 30% missile resist, which makes them incredibly hard to shoot. Bonus versus infantry armor piercing that leads all the shooting. Also surprisingly good against cavalry. Having AP on the mobility is really rare for high elves, so you take it when you can take it. I think it is a pretty solid unit.
I think easily a B tier. They do surprisingly well against enemy light cavalry. They do never ever let them get charged by enemy cavalry. They will die very fast.
Yep, agreed. I think their one entrapment is they low-key struggle against even infantry with just high DPS. Anything that has high DPS, they will die quick, even on a charge. So most times you want to be cycle charging them, which keeps them from that A tier. They can't really stay and fight.
Next up, we have the ROR. I would put it in A tier. I see it in B, but I think it's A tier. The ability for the leadership debuff is very good, but I think the best thing about them is the stats. The +10 leadership is a lot in their case.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, this one with the ability to route units faster, I love it. The slow, trap stuff in, so I agree that it deserves that tier above.
I think they're definitely a very good unit.
All right, now we got the Oceanids. I was fan for this unit since day one, before I even got my hands on them. Low-key, they might be S. You know, I'm going to go with A. I think they're very good. I think they have their weaknesses, like shooting, but they are opening up holes in front lines. High Elves' biggest thing, or a big weakness for High Elves, is often getting swarmed, and these guys can just finish those frontline engagements faster. And they also do decent versus large, so I will stick with A, but they have been a great unit. They range in their value. They get me from like 600, 700 to like 1400, but most times they're in that 900 to 1100 range, and they have a great number of matchups. Their one shortfalling being their damage is really slow versus armor.
I really like the Oceanids in the A tier as well. They hold incredibly well. They kill all the unarmored stuff in surprisingly well as well.
I agree. It's an A tier unit. In some cases outperforming Silver Helms as a defensive mass, as well as being able to break through some chaff way quicker than our other tools would. But they are not a universally useful unit, so they stay in A.
And next up we got the Eagles. And the Eagles, that if they're common, your opponent is probably not worried about them, because they're a bad unit. And why are they a bad unit? Because they simply do not do too much damage to anything that has any armor. And even if they find their target that is not too armored, it is enough that they get charged by any cheapest cavalry in the game, and they get broken instantly due to them having no armor, which is pretty unfortunate for the unit that is so cool.
Alright, yes, I agree they are a very bad unit. They are a good mount though. But as a standalone unit, I think they should never be taken.
Yep, nailed it.
Right, next up we have the Flamespire Phoenix, the cheapest terror source we have. And it's also bad. Phoenixes in general have some animation stuff going on where they don't clear anything really well. The Phoenix itself, outside of terror, doesn't bring too much to the table, and just way better to pay more for a better one.
Yep, agreed. And their bombs are weird. This wasn't the case in Warhammer 2, but it forces you to wait a second, so they're hard to line up. It's a huge micro tax.
I think their biggest issue is their melee weapon damage, which is actually less than the Eagle has, which is incredibly sad.
All right, next up we got the Frosty. So I love the Phoenixes, but this one also has to go into niche for me. I've long hated how little damage this guy has. His debuff is great, minus melee attack and minus weapon strength in an aura, but I need him. He often gets me 1,000 or 1,100, and the abilities he brings is not worth another 400 gold.
Yeah, if you want to go cheaper than a Karadrian for some reason, the difference between Frosty and the Flamespire Phoenix is that Frosty can actually do damage, having way better stats. It is not as bad of a unit as the Flamespire Phoenix is, so I think the C tier is perfect for it.
I think its use case right now, after the Karadin came out, is if you want something to help 2v1 enemy lord, for example, with Eltarion against Bretonia's Luen or Alberic, you can take it and still have decent army on the ground.
And next up, we got Arcane Phoenix. And the Arcane Phoenix, actually, first really good Phoenix out there, except for the Karadrian. Very good ability, unlike the Flamespire one. A lot of damage to infantry, cavalry, while being very good in melee. I think it is a very good unit.
Yeah, I would agree. It's overall the best Phoenix alongside the Arrower. And if you want to go for flying single entities, the more expensive options are usually the way to go.
Yep, I love this bird. It often gets me its value back, or around 2,200, which is fantastic for its price. Great to pair with one of your other SEs.
And the Arrower also goes into the A tier. It's basically the same deal with the addition of Omen of Hope, which is an amazing ability for when you are doing a single entity blob, because it keeps the vigor of your other monsters or units in general refreshed, which means you don't have to regrowth them. You can settle with Earthblood and heal them all up at the same time.
Yep, I think it's fairly costed. If it was cheaper, then it would jump up into S, but I think you pay a lot for that ability and for those extra stats, so that keeps it at the same tier.
Yeah, it can make up for its price, but usually when you want it to have any use, you usually make a build around it. It definitely isn't going any higher.
All right, so now we got the Sun Dragon. I like this one in B. I usually just go for cheap breath attacks. This is, in my opinion, the roster's true cheapest terror. You have to be very cycle chargy with it, so its lack of stats is what keeps it out of the higher tiers for me. I feel like if I want to grind and melee fight and all that, I will just go for a better dragon. But if I'm just looking for my cheapest source of dragon breaths, I will take a Sun Dragon.
Alright, and the next unit we got the Moon Dragon. So in theory the better version of the Sun Dragon. It is better in melee. It can definitely be in use in these funny techless builds with net and fire weakness and snipe enemy lot with double breath attack from right over the lot's head. But overall it doesn't have too much use more than the Sun Dragon.
Speaking about the Sun Dragon, I would maybe put it even in A. I think it's mostly used as a mount. All three dragons are, I think. But it's an absolute beast. It has a laser breath. It has incredible stats. And of course, you need to use it very well for it to pay for itself, because it's very expensive. But if you want a strong monster, this is a strong monster.
All right. Now we got the Merworms. I think we can just tackle both of these. I would put the regular Merworm into niche at best, and the ROR in terrible. The ROR, we can get that one out of the way. It's just ridiculously expensive. The Merworm itself is not that crazy of an SE. It sounds super great on paper, regeneration, a little bit of missile block chance, but it costs an insane amount of gold. It dies really quick. The extra gold on the ROR for its ability is not even big enough to reach another SE because its model is so large that it bodies the unit it's attacking out of the ability size. So it's a terrible unit.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with the R1 for 3k gold. There's so much stuff that you can bring for 3k gold in this roster. I would even argue that the basic Merworm goes into bad as well. And I just find them not usable in like almost any matchups.
I could maybe see the Merworm in C just because it's maybe not explored enough, but I don't have too much to add.
What we got next? We got next the Sea Elemental, the another new unit. Just as the Ocean, it's really hard to kill. Even harder to kill than the Ocean is. A lot of 70 melee defense is a lot. It has a spell. The spell isn't too good, but it is mostly good because it clears all the infantry. It is really fast for an SE. It doesn't get killed, unlike the Merworm. And I think it is like at least a solid monster, if not even a very good one.
I agree, and I would put it in A. I've had so many people complain after fighting. It's basically very, very hard to kill. It does grind forever. It is actually the good monster that has capture weight. Previously, we didn't have terror that had capture weight. This is, I think, a big point.
Yep, I agree. I like that it's a ground monster because that has way better times massing up slippery mass like trains. A Star Dragon, a train will slip away, but that Sea Elemental will body it and push it back. I also think that in places where war lions fail, like Marauder Champions, Chaos Warriors, or where war lions are pretty slow to DPS and we struggle, that Sea Elemental is the way. It has a great like wave animation that can take a chunk off of infantry, and I think it's a great addition to the roster.
That would be pretty much it for the tier list. If you disagree any of that, let us know please in the comments. And thank you all for watching, and see you next time.